and get settled. Definitely encourage you to open up that chat box and start interacting with each other. We've got such an awesome panel for you today, and I'll tell you, right before we hit live, we were just talking about our favorite margarita mixes, and Jay was telling us about his affinity towards wine. I mean, I think the pandemic has caused us all to reinvest in our bar carts. Courtney, tell us about your recent investment.
Well, my go-to these days. As I'm coming to you from Massachusetts, and I'm very, very New England in this answer, in that there is, a brewery / distillery / vineyard on Nantucket called Pisco, and they make this vodka it's a blueberry vodka with real blueberries, so it's actually purple. And it is with either seltzer or lemonade. It is the vacation drink. I will tell you that much.
Wow.
Nice.
That sounds terrific. Folks, share your favorite summer drinks in the chat so you can give us some inspiration. Jay, you said you've been turning to wine lately, though. Are you a white or a red?
I've been wine for a long time. The problem is with kids, our collection is just building up. So I have like 200 bottles in the basement, and normally in the summer we wouldn't be drinking red wine, but the AC's on, so that keeps the sweats down.
Well, Jay Gill says he actually owes you a bottle of bourbon. So, I mean,
he does.
He says,
if we ever have face-to-face contact again, we will drink that bottle of bourbon.
That's right.
Old fashions around.
Jay, I was going to invite you to Santa Barbara and wine country, but apparently with 200 bottles, you don't need to come visit.
I could always need a couple more. You book the trip, I'll be there.
I was going to say, you can just add to that wine cellar. Cute guy, yes. Love it. All right, folks, we are at the top of the hour, and I am excited to officially welcome you to today's panel, Farewell Fall Travel, an Executive Leadership Forum. My name's Mallory Wilsea. I am the Vice President of Strategy and Operations at Platform Q Education, the developers of the Conduit platform. Platform Q Education helps colleges and universities evolve their online engagement strategies and enables institutions to meaningfully engage with prospectives, parents, and counselors at every step of the admissions process. Now, I've got just a couple housekeeping items to cover before we dive into this important conversation. Today's panel will last about 60 minutes. Now, if we go over a few minutes at the top of the hour, we understand you might have to leave. So we are recording today's session. We're on the Conduit platform right now. So this session is going to be available for on-demand replay and to share with your colleagues as soon as it concludes. For our PQE clients, the recording will be immediately available in your Conduit dashboard. And for future clients tuning in, we'll send a link to the on-demand recording on Thursday. We're also simulcasting this discussion to our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter streams. Special hello to anyone viewing us on those areas. We encourage you to check it out there after the end of the webcast. Now, during the panel, you can submit questions to presenters through the Q&A feature below. We have an active chat room available through our Campus Connect chat box, and we encourage you to share your ideas, ask questions, and interact with each other and the attendees during the panel today. If you post on social about today's session or any of the key takeaways, please don't forget to use the hashtag #FallOffTheTable. And finally, please help us help you by filling out a quick post-panel survey. Your comments and ratings are greatly appreciated, and they will influence topic selection for our future panels and webinars. So don't hesitate to let us know what kind of content would be educational and valuable to you. Once we conclude today's session, the survey will automatically appear on your screen. Nothing that you have to do, just hit pause, wait, and it will appear in this window. You do not have to do a thing. Now, without further ado, I am so excited to introduce you to our panelists today. We have Cuca Acosta, the Associate Director of Admissions at the University of California, Santa Barbara, Courtney Minden, Vice President of Enrollment and Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid from Babson College, Alice Arredondo, Director of Admissions at University of Missouri, Kansas City, and last but not least, Jay Murray, Associate Vice President of Enrollment Services. He joins us from Western Connecticut State University, and Joyce Lantz, the Director of Recruitment and Communications at the University of Notre Dame. Special welcome to our panel. Guys, let's get started. I think it is safe to say that this fall will be a recruitment season like we have never seen before, and many institutions are reporting significantly reduced travel plans, if not saying farewell to fall travel altogether. This panel consists of leaders from different types of institutions all across the U.S. To kick things off and set the stage for the conversation, I would like you each to tell us where your institution's at in terms of both your fall education plan and whether or not recruitment travel is on the table. Courtney, why don't you kick us off?
Sure, it's a timely question. I just got off the Babson Community Forum where we laid out what was in a 26-page memo talking about our reopening plan for the end of August. We will have an open campus. We'll be delivering a hybrid educational delivery system, which means there will be students on campus. There are also students will be able to opt to do 100% of their semester online at home. We have about 113 international students, for instance, who have gone into what we call the freshman year pathway, they will be a cohort who will arrive in January having done the semester online. So right now our focus really is safely delivering, a robust academic experience for all four classes, and I am really excited to get back to what we're kind of calling the next normal. We are, we really are going into this year thinking that while we will be on campus in some way, shape, or form, visitors will not be on our campus, so campus tours and information sessions have to be delivered differently. And we will also be staying in Massachusetts for the semester. That there is not going to be a travel season in Babson for fall.
I can say ditto. Hi, everybody. As stated, I'm Cuca Acosta with UC Santa Barbara, and the University of California, Santa Barbara campus will also be planning a hybrid instruction. Our ambition and goal is that anyone who needs to do a full remote instruction will be able to make that request of us, specifically our international students and our domestic non-resident students who may not be able to travel to California. Our ambition is that our students who are in labs or in dance spaces will have in-person instruction. That's all dependent on the county, though. So not just the state of California, but the county giving me their blessing and saying that we can do that as an institution. As for fall and recruitment and even summer recruitment, I love my desk, I love my office, I love my couch, and I need to love it because I will be staying on it for fall. We have no plans to travel as an institution. We will be doing full remote instruction. So alas, my status on United and Marriott will maintain itself for a year. Thank you very much for those friends, but it won't be getting any better, unfortunately. I won't get more points. What about you, Jay?
Well, that's kind of the same for us. I mean, we've made all our plans for staff return to campus, faculty and students in the fall, a blend of on-campus, hybrid, and online, both synchronous and asynchronous instruction. We have not gotten official notification about schools in our area or notification whether we are allowed to travel. We are going on the premise that there will be no travel. It's funny, we should have opened the session with this, talking about status, because there's a lot of great enticements out there for those who can travel, but alas, I won't be going anywhere.
Same for us. Yeah, same for us. At the University of Missouri Kansas City, we will not be traveling this fall, and we are going to be pretty limited in what we are going to be able to do on campus in terms of bringing guests and students and their families to campus. So most of us are going to be seeing our faces in this exact environment. So I hope we can all, keep our houses behind us clean and organized. But when we're inviting all of these students and families into our living rooms, we're representing all. So yeah, no travel for us either.
And then at the University of Notre Dame, it's the same story. We won't be traveling this fall, and although we are excited about welcoming our current Notre Dame students back to campus next month, our faculty and staff will be somewhat limited in the number of us that will be joining that community. The goal, obviously, is to keep our current community as safe as possible during this pandemic. So those of us that can work from home, we will be working from home. And I foresee that we'll be doing a lot of virtual programming this coming semester. And, who knows what will come in the spring.
And I do want to clarify, I think we're all talking about domestic travel, not international travel. That we're all talking about that what we're looking to do in the traditional, road warrior of an admissions counselor is not going to be happening this year for a good majority of us. We'll be staying put and not being in high schools. We may not even be welcome in a lot of our high schools as they're making the same decisions to not allow visitors to come in. And in the state of Missouri, all of our regional college fairs are virtual, so we won't be traveling out to those college fairs either. So just wanted to, clarify that we were talking about not traveling. We're talking about domestic travel in addition to international.
Yep. Thank you for that clarification, Alice, because I see that one of our attendees did ask for it. So thanks for jumping on that question. Now, it is not a surprise to anyone if I were to say the entire industry has been operating in a constant state of uncertainty since March. And 5 months ago, institutions had to act very fast and turn in-person events to virtual events on a dime. For a lot of institutions, this was the first serious investment in virtual platforms and engaging with admitted students in a new way. Now, Courtney, I know at Babson, your team was really just dipping your toe in the water with virtual events before the pandemic hit. And I have a feeling that a lot of folks in higher ed were in a really similar boat. So what was the experience like for you? And what are some of the key learnings from the spring that you're going to take with you into the fall season?
Yeah. I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that you just said 5 months ago, which has been the longest and shortest 5 months of my life. I still think back to the moment, it was March 10th when we made the decision to go remote. And I had a long walk back from the president's office to my building and thinking, what am I going to do? I've always said that the key to a Babson's enrollment is to get them on campus and actually see, not only the physical plan of the campus, but the energy. And I thought, how am I going to replicate that energy enough to convince families to invest in us? And I'm contractually obligated to say this. I called Gil Rogers. That was the first thing I did after I told at Platform Q, after I told my staff, and I just said, be my thinking partner and let's be partners in this. And as if I can be a guinea pig for you, I will do it. I will be the beta, the first beta you call, and anything you can tell me. Let's just use our, sort of share this toolbox together. And so that's been amazing. And, that's really led to some really interesting, approaches to that what I was calling virtual spring, and that went into virtual summer. And now we're looking at virtual fall. So I'm really still operating by the seasons. But I think that, we obviously, the first thing we really needed to do was think about, okay, so first there are no visitor. There are going to be no visitors and there are going to be no students to talk to the visitors. So the first thing I had to do was, okay, I already have a virtual tour, but I don't have a virtual information session. The students are leaving in 3 days. And students are a big part of our admission officer-led information session. I said, how do I get them on camera, on campus, before they leave for spring break? And that's exactly what we did. We found a space, we got the team on all together. We actually filmed several different information sessions with every admission officer taking a different section with a student. And so by the time we all went remote, we already had an information session. And then the next really big mountain to climb was the virtual open house that was going to happen on April 17th. So we had a month to do that. And I think leading into the takeaways of how that worked is, the first thing you have to realize when you're transitioning to virtual is that you can't think you're going to take an existing event and just translate it onto the screen. it doesn't fit. And there are things that you're going to have to think about that we never had to think about necessarily in the structure of on campus. I mean, on campus can be a lot more spontaneous. For instance, questions that conversations veer in different directions based on sort of the natural conversation. Whereas we have to be a little bit more structured, just based on Wi-Fi and the resources that we have just within this this limited real estate. I learned that you have to overemphasize engagement. You can't just expect it to naturally flow. You can't wait until after for the Q&A. You have to be having questions answered and new topics introduced in real time. You need to make sure that the audience, right now, for instance, this is a perfect example. I can't see the audience. So I just have to, I can't go by verbal or physical cues. So you just really have to be on the entire time. I think the other, beyond changing your engagement, changing the way you provide visuals and engage the audience in conversation, you also can't do it just as an island. You can't be the admission office in charge of enrolling and recruiting and enrolling. On March 10th, the admission office became enlarged and expanded to be the entire campus community. Every single person on our campus had some sort of role if they raised their hand to help. I mean, an example was I had somebody in HR saying, I want to help, but I'm not, the students really don't really care what I do. I work in human resources. What can I do to help? I said, put on a Babson t-shirt. If we film a video, wave. You don't have to introduce yourself and say, I'm never going to see you, but I'm glad you're here. You're part of the Babson community. This also is huge with alumni involvement. I could, all of a sudden, I had access to just about any alum I wanted. So I had a CEO call and say, he was the CEO of a cruise line, and he said, never in a million years would I have had time to participate in a yield event, but I'm home and I am in a moment where I can teach these students about how to manage a crisis in the tourism industry. And I would be happy to do that. So, not only is it essential to engage your community, they're right there for you. And in a time of crisis, people want to help, and they really did step up.
So, Courtney, what I'm hearing is that it takes some thinking, some planning, attention, care into transitioning what may have been an in-person event into a virtual space so that it is more, effective, engaging, meaningful. Jay, what did you learn from the spring in terms of approaching these virtual events? And, what were some of the key takeaways that you're bringing into the fall?
So we were fortunate in that we were already a partner on the platform heading into the pandemic, but we still had to lift and shift some upcoming face-to-face events on the platform. Primarily, just like Courtney, it was the Accepted Student Day, but we had even less time because it was April 4th or 5th, that first Saturday in April. We shut down on the 13th, and literally, just like Courtney said, I'm having flashbacks. The admissions office were running around like, okay, let's get this person on camera, let's get that. Because we didn't even have a virtual tour. I mean, we had faces and pretty pictures, and that's what we had to roll with. And we had to take what was a 6-7 hour event with food and festivities and condense it down into, basically we got it down to under 2 hours, probably 90 to 100 minutes. Trying not to replicate what we would do on campus, but trying to, from feedback we had got from families, provide information that they had told us they're most interested in short snippets, but keeping it interactive. The Q&A, sending our deans home with cameras. Spouses and children were taking a video of our deans so we could have uploaded our president and our provost. Well, we actually did those on campus. Shh, don't tell anyone. We had them come to campus so we can get really good photography, videography of them, and then putting it all together. But then using that instead of as a one-day event, we did a 6 or 7 day event. by school, by program, really specific for honors, for athletes, and migrated that into a kind of a continual series of touch points, knowing that we can't come to campus. Let's try to engage folks in the venue that we're most comfortable with now, but certainly, hopefully, they're comfortable with. So we even migrated to orientation this summer, but now we've ramped up our regular scheduled campus visits, and we have finally created a virtual tour as of 2 weeks ago that we can also share with the students as well. But we've found basically the more interactive it seems, the happier the people are. When we talk too much, we get constant feedback that it's too long, even though the time we take up could be the same. If the students are interacting, they're happy with it. If they're listening to us talk, it's too long.
So interesting. So that's a tweetable moment right there. That interaction is really important for producing an engaging event for prospective students and families. So thanks, Jay. That's great. Now, I'm seeing a lot of questions come through the Q&A that are essentially getting to, what are you going to do with campus visits this fall, especially if your campus is closed down or, many families will just be choosing not to travel to campus. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge how important campus visits are in the summer months. And Kuka, I'm married to an alum of UCSB. I know firsthand your gorgeous campus sells the institution. And I bet usually your summer days are full of campus tours and daily admission sessions. So it's not waiting to the fall to shift these strategies. We got to do it now. What are you doing, and how have you shifted your summer strategy?
I will state that the best selling point for my campus is definitely having a student and their family walk onto the campus and demystify all of the rumors that are on social media about who we are or who we could be. And that didn't happen in the spring. And so I knew we had to pivot for summer. And I have an amazing group in my visitor center that came up with some great ideas, including faculty lectures. So we do online faculty lectures, which are exciting. Guided virtual tours. So yes, we've had a virtual tour for a year, Jay, and we had it down, but were people clicking on it at, once or twice a week? Were they really engaged? And do they want to do their own virtual tour right now? No, they want the interaction. They want the feedback. They want to go, wait, stop. Tell me what that building is. Why is that important? Why is it so important that it became a photo in your tour? And so we really thought about how much does that engagement back and forth need to be there? And so as opposed to doing daily sessions, again, repeating what we normally do when we're in person, we actually did pre-recorded admissions presentations as part of our ComFlow, and the students now register for our campus tours, and before they show up, they can watch the admissions presentation, they can choose to ask questions during the tour about that student perspective or email us back questions, and we're using our time with the student wisely. Because Jay's right, they're not going to spend 2 hours online with us for an admissions presentation and a campus tour like they normally would if they were physically on campus. And I've got to be mindful of their time. The attention span of a 16-year-old, because I've got nephews and nieces that are at that age, is the TikTok world, right? Is I will give you this much of my time, and if I'm not engaged, bye-bye, adios, au revoir, right? So I need to be able to catch their attention. And I know that getting somebody on my campus is not going to happen since we're closed. And if we stay closed during the fall, I'm going to get not just the students' attention, but their parents' attention, because their parents have to let them come to Santa Barbara, maybe even grandma's attention, right? Because she has to be okay with it. Could be a sibling. I have to keep the whole family engaged. And so part of it is pre-recorded, part of it is being able to do live events that are engaging back and forth.
I want to touch on something that you just said. So you were talking about the engagement piece, right? That yes, our campuses, our beautiful campuses, draw people to our campus, and it helps them be able to visualize themselves there. But the other piece that's just as important is the authentic interactions that they have with our people, with our community. And so even if you have a beautiful, beautiful campus, if you don't have a way to engage students even in person, they may not be as interested as another campus where they are actually engaging and feeling like they're a part of the community. And so I think one of the things that you've got to think about when you're replicating that experience is how over a virtual setting can I connect with prospective students? Can I connect with their parents? Can we engage and have a conversation? And I can communicate what the UMKC community can offer you, even though you can't visually see my campus as well right now. How are we connecting? How am I showing you our community and bringing you into it, even if you can't see the physical beauty that we can offer every day that you're here? And I think that that's a really important piece when you're thinking about these visits and doing things virtually, is that authentic engagement, that authentic content that you can provide to students in a different way now.
That is such a great point, Alice, and actually leads me into a question that I want to turn to you, Joyce. Speaking about that authentic engagement and to Jay's point about interactivity, I know this week Notre Dame's offering a really robust program for rising seniors called the Virtual Preview Days, and you have sessions ranging from student panels to application workshops and even financial aid events. And I understand planning something this extensive doesn't happen overnight. So can you tell us a little bit more about this event and what went into making this week happen successfully?
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. Like the rest of the panelists, we had a similar March where we had to quickly pivot to a virtual world. And I think Jay mentioned this. You were right on the heels of having some on-campus programming for your admitted students, and we were in the same situation. So we had to shift gears quickly, and we all kind of circled up in what seemed to look like a situation room where we started brainstorming and started talking about how we were going to yield the class that's joining us this fall. And so a lot of work went into that, and a few of us that work in my area, which is recruitment and communications. I know this is going to sound a little bizarre, but we really enjoyed the pace because we were moving quickly. And as most of you probably know, sometimes in higher ed, just sometimes things don't move quickly because we think about things and then we think about them again and then maybe one more time before we feel comfortable about rolling things out. But we all were put in a position where we had to move quickly, and we were moving at a pretty good clip. And I think that our goal at that point in time was to bring in the class that's going to be joining us this fall. And we had some great success there. Like Jay, we had already had some experience working in a virtual environment. We had been clients of Platform Q for quite some time. So we were using those virtual settings to complement some of what we were already doing on campus. So now, to get to your question, Mallory, we're moving on to that next class, the class that will be joining us in 2021. And of course, they have all kinds of questions. We're a university like many that have gone recently test optional. We're in a situation where we aren't welcoming students or families to visit campus at this point in time. And you're right, that is something that I think students were looking forward to this summer. Many rising seniors had plans to visit schools during their spring break, and that got canceled. And they thought maybe they'd be able to visit schools in the summer, and now they're finding that that's been canceled. And I get it; it's frustrating and it's difficult because they're being asked to apply to colleges and universities unseen. And so we're going to do our best, I think, all of us, to make sure that we can interact with them and engage with them virtually. So this program that we developed. We had a little more time to think through it, and we wanted to make sure that it was robust, that we covered what we would usually cover when a student or a family visited our campus, and we developed a week-long program. We sent out postcards to advertise the program and to get the attention of maybe those students that weren't necessarily online because we're right in the middle of summer here, or maybe those students and families that don't have access and gave them enough time to figure out where they might be able to join us virtually. I think that's one challenge that we all have to think about. This is easy for some families, not easy for all families to just jump online and join us virtually. So our programming is Monday through Friday this week. You can find all kinds of information about it on our website, and I would invite any of you that are just looking to see what we're up to. We do the same thing. You know, we jump on programming at other schools and see what other schools are up to, because I think that we can learn an awful lot from each other. But we are doing some really, really cool sessions, I think, with current Notre Dame students that are all over the United States, around the world, and they're jumping on and they're representing their colleges, they're representing student life on campus, they're talking about their research opportunities. The sessions that we had yesterday that highlighted our College of Engineering and our College of Science, we let our students run the programs. We didn't even have a moderator in the room. And it was nice. It was nice to watch because it seemed very conversational and it seemed very real and very authentic. And we've already received some feedback from families that have said to us, that was really good, you know, for our son or our daughter to be able to just talk with current students and find out what the experience is like. And I guess that's not new to any of us. We know that current students do more for us than well, they do a great deal for us. I don't want to eliminate my job, but they do a great deal for us in communicating our message. This morning we had an event for prospective international students, and we literally had students join us from, all around the world. I was going to say almost every continent, but that would be an exaggeration. But it was really nice to see those students jumping in from where they were. And honestly, it amazes me. It absolutely amazes me that we can be talking to each other, and you know, you're in Santa Barbara and you're on the East Coast and I'm here. And then when you bring in students from around the world, it's pretty amazing the conversations that you can have and the perspective that you can give. And so nothing at all beats a visit to our campus, just like many of you have already said, but we're trying to find the next best thing.
So we've really focused this first half hour on, you know, the campus visit and how that's just really not possible in the coming months. But the other half of fall travel, right, is the travel piece. The fall recruitment is so focused on things like college fairs and high school visits. Those are the more traditional activities that I was a road warrior 12 years ago, and I spent 8 to 10 weeks every fall, you know, just visiting high schools and spending my evenings interacting with families during those college fairs. So let's talk about that, because for many institutions, as you all indicated at the top of this panel, that's going to be off the table. So many fairs that are planned for 2020 for the fall have already shifted to virtual. Some I've heard are even increasing their cost to participate. Jay, what are you seeing, and how are you approaching college fairs at Western Connecticut?
Well, this is really scary because, you know, virtual college fairs aren't new. Some of us might remember, you know, 10, 15 years ago, they popped up and the students just did not show up. It did not matter. And I'm one of those people who's constantly bemoaning the inquiry card, and it's hung around this entire time. Face-to-face college fairs, face-to-face interaction high school visits. And could this be the event that kills the inquiry card? Is that what we're going to see out of this? But then on the flip side, I'm sure everyone's the same. Our phones are ringing off the hook with every snake oil charm salesman on a virtual college fair of some type. So we're getting it from the schools. We're getting it from large organizations. I think NACAC has thrown out some virtual fairs this fall. Somebody told me there was one, and it hasn't crossed my desk, that's charging like $1,400 for the virtual fair. I mean, it's kind of insane, but guess what? What else do we have? So, you know, at WCSU, we're dipping our toes in the water, and we're kind of classifying them as must do. That's that stuff in our 50-mile service radius. Need to do those target schools outside the area. And then there's the, and we're hoping the $1,400 fare falls into that, because we really don't want to get into that. But we know that once if we ascertain that this works, and I had a conversation with another vendor, if the students are there, we will be there. If they're not, don't call us. So once we ascertain that this is working, I think we could see a situation where virtual becomes the new normal and we become comfortable. I'm hoping, but I'm not seeing savings. Sure, there's not flight, sure, there's not hotel, but at some of these registration fees, it's as if we're on the road.
Well, and I'll throw in there, okay, I normally have my office do about 400 college fairs and events up and down the state and across the country. If each one of them is charging me $200 or more, am I really saving money?
No savings.
They're not doing per diem, or they might not be doing flights or all of that. But on the whole, the idea of being charged for a college fair hurts my soul, because I do want to get in touch with those students. And the idea of ROI, well, I might be paying $200, but I'm getting X amount of student names. Well, okay, but how many of those are just at the top of the funnel who are just there to hear what's going on? How many of those really will come down and be that student that registers for you? That comes down to data that you have in your CRMs to see whether or not that territory works. It also comes down to how that registration was going to come from the vendor who is providing that data for you. If they provide that full data to you, just because they registered, or did they have to go into your booth or your chat?
And when are we going to know? It's going to be a whole year before whether we know the success or failure of these fairs. Whereas with our traditional travel, you knew if you sent a counselor to X high school in X location, you knew what was going to happen based on all past experience. Now we're looking at it, it's a whole new ballgame out there. We're going to be literally flying in the dark, of course, with the same expectations. Yeah.
So college fairs is one component, but those high school visits are another really important companion to the fall travel. And admissions staff are used to spending weeks on the road connecting with prospective students at high schools. Joyce, how are you preparing your staff to think differently about recruiting in their territory, in lieu of these high school visits?
Sure. So one of my colleagues, Mary DeVilliers, is working with a team within our division, and we're doing a lot of brainstorming. We're doing a lot of committee conversations, committee decisions, but we're not doing it blindly. I think, Coco, you make a good point. You need to really pay attention to the research out there and pay attention to what it is that students are looking for. We also sent out a survey to high school counselors that we had in our database to get, and we sent it out. I think we sent it out we sent it out on July 1st. And I know that when we sent it, it was really early for high schools to even know what they were doing. But we asked questions like, are you anticipating that you'll still allow colleges and universities to come for in-person visits? Do you anticipate that you're going to be leaning more toward virtual visits? What does that look like? What's your preference? Do you think that your students would feel comfortable in this type of environment, or a good number of them are already using Zoom? Is Zoom the answer? What is it that you would like us to do? And some of the things that we learned was that there are things that we've already talked about. Our sessions probably I would say, well, at least we're not traveling this fall, and I would say most of the high schools that responded to us indicated that they didn't know, or they weren't anticipating that they would be allowed to have visitors to their campus. Again, just trying to keep their environment secure. But around virtual high school visits, it goes back to what we were talking about before. Interactive, making sure that we're engaging, making sure that we're not just showing a slide presentation. and then wrapping up without an opportunity for students to engage and ask questions. And I think that, we've really moved to getting information out there as quickly as we can in different ways so that we can get to the Q&A as soon as we can, which is very much like in-person high school visits. If you all, we all have that experience where they don't really get animated and excited about you being there until you start having conversations and just talking to them about what's important to them. And so there's some similarities there. Logistically, we're still working through some of that. I think that we're going to do our best to try to manage it within our CRM, any sort of high school visit that we set up. But we've already been in touch with or heard from high schools that are kind of running their own programs where they'll invite, several colleges and universities to be part of a virtual program. And so we're open to that. I think our partners on the other side of the desk there are doing exactly what we're doing. We know we want to serve our students in the best possible way that we can during the situation. And I think what's going to be key is just continually talking to those counselors at the high school and asking them what their students want and trying to respond to that in the best way that we can. But we're moving in that direction.
Courtney, I'd love to ask you to what extent you're going to be allowing the high schools to dictate this virtual experience, or if, you are driving what this new normal looks like. This was a great question that one of our audience members asks and really relevant to this discussion.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, I wrapped my head around the fact a long time ago that, the territories that I personally have they're hotspots. They're international. It's DC. It's New York. And so a long time ago, I knew that, even if I was ready to hop on a train, the counselors were not ready to, or the school systems were not ready to see me. So, it does have to be a partnership. Just because what I want to do something doesn't mean I can. So that's sort of the first practical question. But I do think, this past 5 months, where I've really been stretched as a leader is to really see, not spend so much time saying, oh, fall's ruined, or spring is ruined, you name the season, but to really say, all right, how can my staff use this opportunity, to the extent that it is an opportunity, to think about the visit differently? So I'm sort of not even thinking about high school visits these days. I'm just thinking about student visits and how to go to where they are. So yes, they're probably maybe not this year going to be hanging out in a in a college counselor office surrounded by pennants and posters, but they are going to want to have more information. They're going to be catching up, a lot of them, because they didn't have a traditional summer visit and might need to do a lot more research. So might not be seeing the students who are just seeing me because they're planning on applying on early decision. They want to know what Babson's all about. And I think the high schools dictate this, but it's my team that's going to be doing a lot of, applying creativity to what they would like their territory visits to look like. So, a lot of schools like Babson have territories, and I am telling my staff, you are the territory manager. So I want you to think about the cultural, the cultural resources that you might have, the realities around, there are some cultures where we're 26% international. We're learning from the conversations we're having with our enrolling students that the parental involvement is culturally really important, that we need to be able to look a mother and father in the eye and have these conversations. Whereas, going to third period, we weren't necessarily seeing that. Just this morning, I had another really important conversation around the community-based organization. And, Babson's really been trying to build out a CBO strategy right alongside our high school visits. And, it's what I've realized in all this is that we weren't going to where they were, because I was going to KIPP at one such organization at 11:30. That's not when the students were at the community-based organization. Or I was going at 4 when they were just tired from the school day. So what kind of interaction, how can I reach out to the community-based organizations and say, what time will you have kids? What do they want to know about? Do they not even want to know about Babson? Do they just want to do a virtual this is Babson, a virtual business incubator. Can we just play? Can we do an activity? Can I bring a professor with me? So right now, if you know me, you know that I love a good creative challenge. And so my notebook is filled with like, how is my travel going to be reinvented?
Things that I don't know if you said it, Courtney, or someone previously, I was just thinking about was one of the things we incorporate into our fall travel is those immediate decision days at the high schools. And we do them on campus for transfer students, but we do them at the schools for high school students. And this summer for transfers, it hasn't been that well received. We find our transfer students come from community colleges like that face-to-face. They like that one stop of going from office to office. But I'm wondering for us, will instant decision days for first-time, first-year students work better in this virtual environment for adding that connection as part of the travel piece, setting it up with the school. Okay, Johnny, Jane, Doug, and Peter have all applied. Let's schedule virtual days because, it's another opportunity for the counselor for that territory to manage their pool. Because, looking at, okay, now I have to replace college fair, I have to replace the high school visit, I have to replace the campus visit, but now I have to replace my immediate decision day. But think about bundling that all together into, kind of a prepackaged, event where maybe it's a bunch of people on the immediate decision, but someone's on the tour while you're talking, other students are doing Q&A with maybe existing students, and then the final is that decision to try to capture that aha moment, which happens so frequently, when it's that face-to-face interaction. I was just spitballing there.
I love it, Jay. You guys, we're getting a number of questions coming in focused on, how do we shift the high school visit to a virtual environment? And based on the way some of these questions are being asked, people are saying, are you thinking about geography-based territories or regional events to direct schools into instead of, if you used to visit 5 high schools in a day? Something tells me you don't want to have 5 individual information sessions for every single high school every single day. Oh my gosh, the burnout that would happen immediately. So Alice, how are you kind of thinking about, taking the traditional high school visit and morphing it into something that's more effective virtually?
So I want to start this question by saying that this is not a plan or a fix just for this fall. I want to say that virtual engagement is here to stay in some form, because you're going to have students now who get accustomed to and who like having that virtual engagement piece before they ever come to visit a campus. And so you're going to need to think strategically about how you're doing things virtually, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So when I'm thinking about where our admissions counselors go in their territories, I'm thinking, okay, we've got some where we know they are our feeders and we have a good enough chunk of students applying that I might want to do something specifically for that high school. But then I know I've got some other schools in a district, and the district is a good feeder for us. So maybe the event that I want to plan is at the district level, and maybe it's actually in the evening with parents able to join as well. And so you've got to really think about each of your schools, your guidance counselors, the ones that you have a good relationship with, the ones you're trying to build a relationship with, and figure out what that connection is going to be. And think about beyond even this fall, what does your virtual strategy look like?
Can I jump in here? I just want to say, I agree with what you're saying, Alice, and I appreciate the sentiment that this is not going to go away. There's going to be students that find this as the preferred way of getting to know us and getting to, and some students, just don't have the opportunity to jump in the car or jump on an airplane and travel to visit us. So we have some opportunities here. One of the challenges that we ran into early on in our committee meetings is we have this, we're set up just like many of you by region. And so we have a certain way of thinking through things, and it is very regionalized. And we started going down the path of coming up with a virtual experience to match every real life experience. And that became rather, that's a long list. And then and all of a sudden we just kind of stopped and said, you don't really have to do a 1-for-1 here. Because, you don't have to have an event in every state when you could have one event that might appeal to a region, for example. Or you don't have to have an event in every high school when you could take advantage of an evening virtual program that would allow students and parents or others to join in the conversation. So we've had to really think some of that through. I have 2 teenagers in my home, and clearly a dog that just walked by and made some noise, so I apologize for that. But it's been interesting watching them, and I know that there's the risk of virtual programming fatigue, and we all feel it because we're in Zoom meetings and virtual meetings all day long, and we're tired at the end of the day. And I think that we have to have some awareness there and not try to overwhelm students with, our programming when they're just trying to get through the day. And I think there's going to be a number of schools that this fall will still be in a virtual learning situation, and the dynamic in their household is going to change dramatically. And so just having some awareness there, and again, listening to them and what they're telling us is that could be helpful to them, I think, going to be really important.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I think is difficult to think about, but you need to think about, is when you are virtual, how do you brand your institution? How do you make sure your brand recognition is still there? Especially for those of us who are smaller institutions who maybe don't have national brand recognition. It's important for us when we are in a virtual setting that we are wearing our colors, that our backgrounds represent the university, that our brand is everywhere, that it can be around our face. When we're presenting and webcasting from Platform Q, our brand is everywhere around us. And I think that that's an important thing that you might not be thinking about, but subconsciously people are picking up on seeing your brand around you as you're doing things virtually. So that's another piece I think that people think about.
It's funny you should say that, because Kuka's got us all beat today as we've got our home backdrop, and she's rocking the UCSB.
Yeah, I think I even see a branded face mask behind you, don't I? Impressive.
Here it comes.
Nice.
Love it.
I think it's also really important. That's a great point, Alice. But I think it's also really important that you have some intellectual branding as well. So this right now, if your school is not recognizable or does not have the national reputation, figure out what your differentiator is and tailor the content for it. So I just mentioned a while ago, and doing an incubator. If you're an engineering school, try to figure out something that the students can nerd out on and tinker with. I think this is, again, where you can engage faculty in your school visit, which we've never, imagine telling a faculty member that you want to bring them to, not to pick on this school, but off Syosset High School, and you're going to go and sit in the cafeteria with them. It's not going to happen. But this is a whole new level of accessibility.
Yeah. And the big thing here is, the reality is, for a lot of our high school visits, we were getting students who would walk in the door because they wanted to get out of class. Let's be real. Yeah. They didn't really need to listen to another information session. They'd already been able to be on our website, or you'd seen them 3 times already in some other platform, and they wanted to get out of class. So we were talking to students about the same thing over and over again. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. the virtual platform is, they're not getting out of class. We're competing with their time on Wi-Fi, their time in with their friends, their social media time now, right? So the conversation is, how do you connect with those students, and how do you allow them to get to know you when you're not in a big college fair, you're not standing behind your table smiling with your brand, and they're waiting for the table next door. They're waiting for Joyce at Notre Dame, and I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs because they don't want to talk to me. But they're going to come over because I'm smiling at them, and the next thing you know, they're obligated to say hello to me. That's gone. So you have to be able to give them something to want to jump into a virtual platform, to want to register for something. And the reality is, most of us missed a lot of those inquiries from no College Board, SAT, ACT exams that we could buy, right? We miss those inquiries when it comes to us visiting in the spring. We miss them visiting us so they didn't register for campus visits. So where do we connect with those particular students now? Because we can't invite them to that faculty lecture that Courtney is having, because she's amazing. We can't invite them to the open house that Notre Dame is doing this week. Where do we go with that? And the big conversation is, we've got to utilize our counselors, our counselor listservs. We've got to utilize the CBOs that are in our community. We've got to utilize the social media platforms where students are at. You've got to be able to go and connect with those individuals and at least give them something, right? I can't just send an email to a counselor and expect them to say, okay, well, Notre Dame and Babson and Santa Barbara are all wanting to chat with you today. That's just going to fill in their inbox, and how many of those counselors are going to want to open those messages? But what can you give a counselor so that they get to know you? So if they are having a one-on-one, that conversation of your name now comes up as an institution. I totally took it to the wrong way with Mallory. Keep going.
Hey, I love a good tangent. You've all heard me say that before. Sometimes the best stuff comes out of them. But folks, as we're getting closer to the top of the hour, I'm just going to pick a couple of the really important questions that have been asked by our attendees, and then we will give you all a chance to share your final takeaways, and folks will be out of here in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So one of the questions that came through that I thought was really important, and maybe I identify with this because I grew up in a rural area, but what are your institutions doing to engage students who come from areas of this country where technology and internet connection may not either be readily available or just simply not as accessible for whatever reason? Jay, putting you on the spot. Have you thought through this at all?
Did I still mute? No, I'm on now. Yeah, a little bit, because with virtual, you always have to kind of play to the lowest common denominator to make sure that your message gets out there. And that could be an advantage in this aspect, because if we're always playing for the mobile device, you're probably, more students are likely to have access. Computer in the home, not going to be universal. Tablet in the home, some type of smart home device in the home. Yeah. So that's how we're thinking, but then also keeping our content for this size, I think, will also be really critical. Those are kind of things we're thinking about, but I think we've gotten better as an institution. I think all of us have that, thinking that that's really the preferred medium for these students who are effectively digital native in a way that no other generation previously has been. Everyone else adopted the technology. These students have never known anything else.
So true. So true. So, go ahead, Joyce.
To add to what Jay just said, and I agree with everything you just said. I just think that social media also is going to be so beneficial to us as we move forward, because even if students aren't actively engaging in Zoom presentations and meetings, we can feel pretty confident that they're actively engaged in social media, and we don't want to crowd into their space. We want to be respectful of that. But I think, at least what we've done is we've turned all of our social media accounts over to our current students, because they're it's a little bit easier for them to communicate at the same level with those prospective students. So we have a lot of strategy built into our social media, and I think that's going to be really important, especially when it comes to branding and giving students a perspective of what it's like to be on campus.
Yeah, we've actually put together a cross-functional team with public relations, media services, web management, enrollment services, advising to how that social media and how we can leverage it, but also have some people with some young ideas in the room, because I'm probably going to totally miss the mark every time when it comes to social media with our students.
Kuka, I gotta ask, is this the end of fall travel as we know it? I mean, maybe that's the question that's been on the tip of the tongue the entire time here.
It's the funny question that your admin and your provost or your chancellor are going to ask. Hey, if you can do it virtually and it saves us money, why bother doing it at all? If it yields,
because we want to travel, that's why we want to do it.
Well, but here's the conversation piece, right? There are quite a few younger staff who this isn't the first time that they get to travel across the globe because of this job. It's the first time that, it took me to Asia, right? Being an admissions recruiter. The conversation of fall travel is at the end. It's the end of how we've done it in the past. That's my opinion. We're not going to go back to only doing in person to 5 visits a day. We're not going to go back to that. It's going to be a hybrid as we move forward. If we're really lucky, we'll be competing on an equal platform because all of us will be doing something virtual and very few people will be doing things in person. But if there are colleges out there that have staff that want to travel and your institution allows them to travel, and the high school allows you to visit, it's going to change the playing field, period. And I know that I've been talking to high school counselors, and some of them are already doing their virtual appointments with their students. They're doing their one-on-one interviews, their senior entrance, and let's talk about your letters of recommendation, with the mindset that they're not going to be allowing us to come into an auditorium or a classroom with 30, 40, 50. When I had 200 students in the cafeteria at one high school, that's not happening. So the conversation of, is it the end of how I knew it in the past? I think so. Am I sad? Completely. Am I excited about how it's going to change and how we can problem solve? Almost. I'm almost there. I just need a few more weeks and then I will get there. Come August, I will be completely excited about the challenge.
Maybe we'll get the band back together in November and we can do a post-mortem. That'd be great.
And the challenge will be, traditional travel is something that we inherited. This could be something that we are on the forefront of innovating and establishing policy and precedent moving forward. That's exciting.
In August,
I also want to say that I think the elephant in the room is we've been ready to be done with fall travel for a really long time. It's not convenient to the teachers. Name one AP Calc teacher who is like, oh, Babson's coming. Oh, I'm so glad half my class. Well, that's probably optimistic of me, but half my class wants to come. I think beyond the fact that I think Starbucks will see a loss in their quarterly earnings when we're not taking our breaks there. I do think that for years we've been trying to wrap our head around the fact that it's kind of a necessary evil that wasn't the most efficient or effective. It was really and a lot of visits were just very much connect with the student before they submit their application that they'd already decided to submit. So I do think this is going to make us a lot more efficient as long as we think about new and different ways to engage.
Absolutely. And so it seems like a really appropriate lead into closing thoughts and key takeaways. So Joyce, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I know time's short, so I'll just reiterate that whatever plans we all make, I think they need to be interactive, they need to be engaging. We need to stay focused on what's important to the student and listen to what they're looking for, and try to come to where they are, even if it's not in real life.
I think I might expand on that a little bit and say, that it's not going anywhere, as I've said, as we've all said, virtual visits, virtual interactions are going to be here to stay. And I think we've really got to think strategically about what they are and where they are in your overall recruitment plan. So when you think about the overall funnel and you think about a multi-channel or multi-layer approach to recruiting, you can't just drop a virtual experience at every single point and have it be effective. So you've really got to think about, how am I doing this? What do I need to do that's live? What can I do? On Platform Q, we all have the benefit of being able to have on-demand content that students can come in and see at any time. So what is best suited for on-demand? What is best suited for live? What is best suited for, all of these different strategies that are in place for virtual, and how do those fit within the overall recruitment plan? I think is something that you really got to start thinking about.
One of the things that I think will always have to be considered with virtual, and it goes with electronic communication, is constantly remembering to involve mom and dad. With the student might receive us, but the student might be receiving us behind a closed door on their phone with their AirPods. They probably don't have the cheap cord like me. So thinking of that, because we'll also be rethinking the timing. It's, even though travel is not a 9 to 5, 5-day a week extravaganza, virtual recruitment is even less of a 5 days a week, 9 to 5 endeavor, but will allow us to innovate how we think about travel.
I love that idea. I also think that the conversation is that it's not a one size fits all. What works for one university may not work for us. Know your brand, know what is unique about your institution, and don't be afraid to collaborate with institutions, because if you can bring in 4 or 5 institutions that are complementing you as an institution, that's a great selling point to a high school counselor or to a CBO, or heck, even just a general public announcement, and being able to say, hey, meet, and I'll use my instance, meet the University of California, right? I'm going to use my sister campuses a lot more. We're going to collaborate this fall. And that's going to be, I think, something that if you don't collaborate, if you don't think about sort of that what fits you and how to sell that, you're going to miss an opportunity. And that's just the saddest thing in the fall, because we can reach more people. We can reach more audiences. I can finally go and talk to somebody in Switzerland. I can finally talk to someone in Nigeria. I don't have to worry about getting on a plane. And so think of the possibilities, not just the hindrances of a virtual platform.
So now this is my ditto moment for you, because I couldn't have said it better. But I think building on that, just remember, we're all in a shared experience. We're all having this moment of reinventing, not just fall, but all 4 seasons, and right down to will committee happen? Maybe that's the next panel that we do. Will the admission committee exist when we can't be, more or less than 6 feet apart? But I do think we should I think there is an opportunity here to, like you said, collaborate, but also, redefine what fall travel is. Now, this is our time to actually have an honest conversation with the high schools and the CBOs and that AP Calc teacher and say, and by the way, students, what do you want in terms of our presence? What do you want your students to hear more about from us or less of? Let's really start a narrative around how are we as a higher ed community going to rebuild? Disruption, this is not going away. Disruption does not ever lead to the status quo. If you think about it, even when the power goes out, the ice cream is never the same when it comes back on. So we just have to think about the ice cream.
All right, another tweetable moment. Think about the ice cream. All right, y'all, what a terrific hour this has been. Just jam-packed with great advice and takeaways. So excited to have been able to facilitate and lead this conversation panel. really appreciate your time and expertise and lending it so freely to all the folks who have tuned in today. Remember, this session was recorded, so you will get access to that on-demand recording soon. And don't forget, as we close out our webcast today, the post-session survey will appear automatically on your screen. It's a quick 3 questions. Please take that for us. It'll help us help you, and we will look forward to seeing you again in a future panel or webinar. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone, and best of luck as you start to strategize your fall recruitment plans. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye,
everybody.